Livy Dunn, All-American gymnast and Viore athlete. When you travel and train as much as I do, you find happiness where you are. On the mat or on the sand, movement and comfort are essential. That's why I live in Performance Joggers by Viore. Made from DreamKnit fabric that's made of 89% recycled materials, effortlessly soft and made to move as much as I do. My happiness starts here, in the softest joggers on the planet. Get 20% off your first purchase at viore.com/Livy. That's VUORI.com/LIVVY. Exclusions apply. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Go to viore.com/Livy and discover the full versatility of Viore clothing. Exclusions apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions.
On July 16th, The Hawk lands on Netflix. From the mind of Will Ferrell.
Oh, mama, I'm back!
Comes a new original series.
Get ready, get ready. That's it. Did I stutter?
When an iconic pro golfer...
Lonnie,
Hawkeye!
...takes one last swing at greatness.
You were a big shot golfer.
I still am a big shot golfer.
No one...
Dad, I'm the Hawk now.
...will stand in his way.
Wow! That's how it's done.
The Hawk, only on Netflix, July 16th.
This is the Daily Blast from the New Republic, produced and presented by the DSR Network. I'm your host, Greg Sargent. It's now becoming clear that Donald Trump's failed war in Iran will have far-reaching consequences for our country, and geopolitically as well. We're only just beginning to get our heads around how disastrous this war and this presidency could very well prove over time. It's a deeply consequential moment, and Trump is spending his nights tweeting crazed demands for adulation, insisting that his war was a world historical triumph, and seething about the prospects for finishing his ballroom. This gap between what Trump is doing to this country and the world on one side and his megalomaniacal, trivial obsessions on the other is really jarring and unnerving to witness. Paul Krugman has been writing really well on his excellent Substack about both sides of this divide, so we're talking to him about how to make sense of it all. Paul, nice to have you back on.
Good to be back on, although I wish the times were better. But anyway, yeah.
Exactly. So let's start with the easy stuff. At 4:32 in the morning, Donald Trump posted this, quote, "These fools who think I haven't been tough enough on Iran when the stock market just hit a record high and oil prices are tumbling down are either jealous, bad people, or stupid. Make America great again." Paul, Trump is very angry that he's not getting more worshipful praise for the world historical triumph that was his ceasefire with Iran, which basically just put a stop to the disaster he created. So we might as well start here. What did you think of the quote-unquote deal?
Obviously, it's horrible. Iran won. It's Iran is in a much stronger position and the U.S. in a much weaker position than before the war started. And of course, the deal is vastly inferior to the Obama JCPOA that Trump ripped up in his first term. All of this at the cost of enormous outlays of money, depletion of weapons stocks, killed a lot of people. And basically, we've just shown the whole world that we're maybe not quite a paper tiger, but a lot less of a power than we were supposed to be. So all of this is an enormous diminution of the United States. I don't think there are hawks are saying, why is Trump giving in? Why isn't he following up on his victory? But there was no victory. This is actually the best you could do given how the war has gone. In fact, he should have made this deal about a week in when it became clear that the whole premise of his enterprise was not going to work.
He could have made a better deal before the war started.
Of course. He could have just done nothing. I mean, that would have been better. And he could have, going back in time, he could have kept that Obama agreement, which was doing a much better job of containing Iran. So yeah, but it tells you something about where we are. That there are apparently a substantial number of, at least until recently, pro-Trump people who really believe that we were winning the war or we had won the war, which just shows you how detached from reality they are.
Well, they're all in the same information bubble. Trump did another missive that was in all caps saying this quote, "Oil is flowing. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. The world will be safe. The stock markets are roaring. Jobs are at records and prices are dropping. Affordability. Our country is strong, safe, and respected like never before. You're welcome." Okay, Paul, he got nothing significant on Iran's nukes, and our country is weaker, less safe, and less respected. But I think we should step back. He's making a bigger argument there, isn't he? It's that in every way, the nation is booming, strong, and leading decisively in the world. What do you make of that bigger argument?
Okay, so I mean, the stock market is up, no question about that. Although the stock market rose a lot under Joe Biden too. People, Trump would like you to put that down the memory hole. And stocks are up, by the way, around the world. There's a stock market boom. I haven't checked the numbers lately, but I believe that they're up substantially more outside the United States than inside the United States. So this is stuff that is not really reflecting uh, reflecting U.S. specific developments, and certainly not Trump specific developments. Presidents do not control the stock market. Um, but the and so leaving that aside, well, the economy, it's not booming. We are basically have had uh, slower job growth than we did in the last 2 years of Biden, and basically flat unemployment. So that's not great. It's not a catastrophe. It's not great. Real wages are lower than they were when Trump took office because we've had a lot of inflation. By the way, one of the things with this corruption of how we do stuff, click on pretty much any information site. I've been only looking at the ones that have to do with economic policy, but federal government information sites, which are traditionally, they're just sort of just the facts. Here's what's happening. Maybe discreetly touting administration policies, but you click on any site and you get a pop up that has a picture of Trump and says "Welcome to the Golden Age," which is all part of this incredible, the kind of dingbat cult of personality.
He corrupts everything. It just seeps into every last corner of public life, basically.
I think it's worth pointing out that this incredible personalized cult of personality for Trump, while it's at an absolutely ludicrous level now, this actually started a ways back. There was a fair bit of it under Reagan, and let's not forget George Bush and the flight suit, right? So this kind of the president is a comic book hero thing is something that appears to go along with modern Republican governance. But of course, it's reached a level of absurdity with Trump, both because of the extremeness of the cult of personality, and because the reality is that uh, there has to be a better. He's a fuck up, right? Basically, nothing, everything Trump touches turns to crud, and so it's really insane.
Yeah, there are like a lot of dimensions to it. If you look at some of those late night tweets, the tweets we're talking about here, you kind of get hit by a real dose of somebody in very steep mental decline. I think it's sort of two layered, right? On the one hand, it's the sheer nakedness of the demand for adulation, which is just completely crazy. Somebody who's sunsetting very plainly in plain sight, who knows he's on his way out and is desperate to sort of have something that he can call a legacy. That's what we see there. But at the same time, you also see him completely detached from the reality of what he's actually done to us, what he's done to you and me, to liberal America, to blue America, even to red America, even to MAGA country. And
Oh
so,
yeah, in some ways, especially to MAGA country, but yeah.
right, two dimensions here of someone in steep mental decline, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is uh, I'm not a psychologist, but I do. As my understanding is that when you're sundowning, when you're in this dissociation that does, among other things, tend to come with age, that you in some ways become more like yourself. Those those aspects of your personality that were disagreeable and unpleasant and dysfunctional, but which you were able to at least police uh, when you were still more there. Now just come out. It's a little bit like, and, it's something like getting drunk or whatever. But anyway, there's a lack of complete lack of a filter now. Even the, I mean, presumably Trump always was a person who lived just for external adulation. I mean, it must be awful to be him. I think there's no insight at all. But 10 years ago, he was canny enough to keep it at least somewhat under wraps, and now he's just out of control. It all gets blurted out at 4 a.m.
Indeed. You had this video where you went very big picture, kind of assessing where we really are right now. I want to try to summarize your argument briefly. Basically, it's that the United States is no longer seen by our allies and much of the world as an indispensable nation. Our military can't do what we thought it could, can't force smaller countries like Iran to do our bidding or Trump's bidding. That due to Trump's tariff fiascos, we have less leverage in trade wars than we thought. That China has unexpected leverage over supply chains and important goods and important resources, that in part due to our abandonment of Ukraine, our one-time allies are looking past us to a post-American world, et cetera, et cetera. Is that the basic argument?
Yeah, that's the basic argument. With the, it is worth saying that even things that I find somewhat encouraging, like the fact that Ukraine is holding, despite Trump having cut them off completely. The United States just stopped sending money and basically stopped the flow of arms. We won't even allow the Europeans to buy arms for Ukraine. And yet Ukraine seems to be gaining the upper hand, which is telling you that they don't need us. The world doesn't need us. And that's part of what's happened in Iran as well. It turns out that if there was one thing we thought that America really had was, well, we had the world's greatest military and we had the world's best weapons, and nobody else could manage without us. And well, it turns out that we were completely flat-footed in the face of Iranian drones, and that Ukraine is holding its own without American weapons. And so who are we? We're becoming bystanders. We're becoming bystanders in world events. America is a rogue power. It does crazy things. It can't even impose its will on a third-rate military power like Iran, and we don't seem to actually be necessary for the defense of Europe. So, why we're a kind of a shadow of our former selves on the world stage.
Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Here's a little tune to help you remember. Same drive, different day. Don't you wish you were getting away? Pack your bags and come on through. Texas, Ohio, Alaska, we're up there too. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, and free waffles are yours to claim. Well, I hope you like my little song. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Hey there, I'm Travis Hoyam, one of the hosts of Motley Fool Hidden Gems Investing. Each weekday on Motley Fool Hidden Gems Investing, we talk through the business news you need to know and the stories moving stocks on Wall Street. On weekends, we game plan personal finance strategies and dive into the industries shaping tomorrow and host the experts, authors, and executives that understand them. Tune in for insights and a long-term perspective on investing and, of course, stock ideas, plenty of them. To quote a listener, it pays to listen. Check us out and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Is this inexorable decline, do you think? Can it be turned around?
Some of it is probably irreversible, and some of it would have happened anyway. The truth is, to a large extent, the America as it seemed to be as Trump took office was an outmoded vision, and I think we didn't fully understand that. But there was still a reflexive tendency on much of the world to think that, well, you have to accommodate, you have to give in, allow yourself to be bullied by an American president, no matter what. And that was all. The truth is, the fundamentals had already shifted against the United States in the sort of global power game. Um, but then there's a lot that uh, is obviously been made much worse by Trump's screw ups. And what the world now has to suspect, even when Trump is gone from the stage, is, well, then who's the next guy? And how do we know that we won't have another Trump like figure? Uh, does an agreement with America mean anything? Since we've just seen an American president rip up every agreement that we had. Does a threat from America mean anything? Because we've just seen that same guy cave totally. And after all, this guy was elected. Sorry to say, was elected fairly by the American people. So what does that say about America? And we don't get that back. It took generations to build the reputation of America, and you don't get that back, unless you give us 3 generations of good governance from here on in.
Well, I want to highlight another aspect of our self inflicted wounds. You brought up Spain as an example of a country that weathered the energy shock from Iran well because it's transitioning to renewables quickly. Here's another area where Trump has set back our country tremendously. He's on two fronts, trying to strangle the transition to clean energy in every way he can. It's like a whole of government approach to strangling the clean energy transition. And at the same time, he's delivering a big oil shock with the Iran war. I guess that'll lessen a bit, but it'll take time. But we have learned that being dependent on oil is a problem, right? The lesson here is that making this transition is even more imperative. And at the same time, we're lagging behind by choice. How bad is this self-inflicted wound, and what can be done about it?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a really, on Wednesday, uh, the Interior Department announced it was paying another $765 million to an energy company not to build wind farms. Right? We're actually not only refusing to follow pro-green energy policies, but actually spending taxpayer money to block it. The Pentagon is using spurious national security concerns to block development of wind farms. So this is a aggressively anti-renewable energy administration, and that's we can talk. I will be talking shortly on the Substack about the motivations, but um, the at a fundamental level, again, this is one of these things where U.S. influence was kind of fated to decline. In The U.S. does have oil and gas in a way that other advanced countries do not. And so that gave us something of a special position. But with the incredible progress in renewable energy, that matters a lot less than it used to. But then on top of that, you have both. The US is, we are basically alone. Everyone else is marching towards a energy transition, and we're trying to go back to coal. Um, and to the extent that countries might have wanted to, well, rely on us a bit. It's actually even more than oil. It's liquefied natural gas, and there was a possible future we seem to be heading for, in which, at least to a certain extent, the world would be relying on U.S. LNG as at least a transitional source of power on the way to the green revolution. But instead, uh, if you were dependent on the United States for LNG, uh, wouldn't you worry that Trump might get mad at you because you won't hand over Greenland or something like that and cut it off? And are you sure that America won't again be led by somebody like that? So the U.S. is on top of everything else, we're risky. We're not trustworthy. So nobody is going to rely on us for energy.
Well, Trump's focused on the important things. Here at 2:51 a.m., he went on a rampage about his ballroom. He insisted it's coming along brilliantly and effectively demanded more adulation for how great it's going to be. It's going to be outfitted with all this powerful military security, etc. Then he raged about the legal travails he's still facing over this, even though he tore down the White House, the East Wing, unilaterally and probably illegally. In another tweet, he celebrated the gilding of some statues. In a third, he posted a picture of himself on the cover of a magazine in India, as if we're supposed to marvel at that in some way. Look, Trump is the cover guy on a magazine in India. What's striking to me here, and you wrote about this, is just this kind of relentless desecration and degradation of everything. He's desecrating the ways in which our capital is supposed to embody small r republicanism. He's turning it into a crass imperial court, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Washington D.C. was designed very much with classical models in mind. The founding fathers were very much into ancient Roman history, but they were into the history of the Roman Republic, not the empire. They wanted, and all of the, we have all of this grand monumental architecture in DC, but it's all celebrating, the people, the republic. It's not personal glory, and and certainly you would never exalt a currently living president that way. So, uh, I actually I live in New York, not too far from there. There's along Riverside Drive, along the west end side of Manhattan. There's a series of monuments. There's Grant's tomb. There's the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, and so on. And they're all very impressive. They're kind of like Washington D.C. in a way, but notably, there's no personal glorification. Even Grant's tomb, it's not a monumental statue of Grant. It's a celebration of defense of the Republic. The Soldiers and Sailors Monument has the names of generals, but they're in plain type, and they're and name and battles, which include the defeats as well as the victories, because this is the Republic. We are stoic, we are modest, and now we have Trump gilding everything, wanting to erect a gigantic arch of triumph in the Capitol, and filling the reflecting pool with algae, which is just showing that the gods have a sense of humor.
Yeah, that is perfect. The Drain the Swamp guy is filling the reflecting pool with algae. I just want to try to pull this all together. I guess what really bothers me about this moment is that Trump and JD Vance don't feel like a shred of obligation to speak to the country with even minimal candor at all about what just happened, right? Everything is all about false glorification of Trump, and it's always just about using the most cynical lies they can to insulate him from any accountability for this calamity. It's always all about him, no matter what. There's like no sense of obligation on their part to function as real leaders or statesmen who care about the nation and its future and have a conception of what's in the interests of the American people. How do you put all this together in your mind?
Well, it's about them, but I think the real question is what has happened to us, or at least to the Republican Party, but I think it may be even broader than that, that this can happen. What is, where I remember there was a time when people used to think of Marco Rubio as a sort of reformist Republican, that reformicon, whatever that, and now here he is walking around in oversized shoes because Trump bought them for him and he's afraid to take them off, and acting as a lickspittle for all of this crazy ego demonstration. My God, I think there's a whole. There will probably be many future books written about the downward spiral that everyone who deals with Trump seems to go into. But um, we always knew that there were people like Trump, but the idea that the basically the world's oldest republic, I think, that the nation that invented Republican values and democratic norms puts up with it. That's what really shocks me.
Well, let me just close out this way. It's my feeling a little bit that Democrats, while they're functioning more as an opposition than maybe they were at the outset of Trump's second term, when they were clearly snake bitten, just terrified. And on some level, Democrats had widely concluded that Trump had put his finger on some sort of real popular sentiment that everybody missed. I think that was never true. He won by 1.5 points, and it was at a time of inflation and post COVID shock and so forth. But that's where Democrats were. Now they're functioning more as an opposition. But still, I feel like there's a smallness to their politics, Paul. And you've been writing about the big problems here and sort of the desecration plus the decline, those two sides that I talked about. Should Democrats be making a bigger argument? What might something like that look like? Some kind of argument which essentially says, you know, let's be real about what this guy is doing to us. Like an argument that says, let's face reality about what this man and his movement have done to our country, and really setting forth a new direction. Is there some way to do that for Democrats?
I think that at some level, the I think that corruption is the theme, and corruption of various kinds. But I think that all ties together. And if we want to talk about kitchen table issues, you can make that part of it. It's the reason that you can't afford your electricity is because of the corruption. The reason that you can't afford health insurance is because of the corruption. And look, I mean, uh, one of the happiest things politically that's happened in the world was the overturn of the Orban regime in Hungary, which was very much something that MAGA people viewed as a role model. This is how you subvert a democracy, and it turns out that but with enough people mad enough, you can flood across all of the barriers they've created. And the central theme of the Magyar campaign was corruption. These guys are corrupt. There were there were zebras on the Orban family estate in the countryside, apparently, and the stuffed zebras became an image for the opposition because it was all about corruption. That seems to me like people may not think in terms of abstract. They certainly won't think in terms of Republican norms, but to make it just, well, I can shave 15% off the price of gasoline if you elect me. That is not how to stop this horrifying term. To say these people are utterly corrupt, self-centered, and you are paying the price. That sounds like a movement that can work.
Yes, and I like the idea of using corruption to sort of open the door to an argument about moral corruption and degradation, which I think people sense that that's happening. That the reflecting pool and the algae and the tearing down of the White House East Wing and the replacement of it with a ballroom and the arch. Those are things that really resonate for people, and I think it's because of what we're talking about here, right? There was a point at which Democrats said something like, "Oh, the ballroom's a distraction," right? But it's clear that these things have profound resonance for people for these reasons, that there's a sense that our common life or something like that is just being fundamentally degraded at a very profound level. And I think the corruption argument opens the door there. I'd point out, by the way, just to close out, that the Magyar campaign was also about what this man, Orban, and his movement, Orbanism, did to us. Look what he did to us. And that seems like there's you've been writing about what Donald Trump is doing to us. And it seems like some Democrats need to step up and grab that mantle in some way, I guess.
Yeah, and I think fire some of the consultants, but no, I mean,
Yeah.
and I would say, I'm a numbers guy. I like to live, in a lot of ways, I view the world through spreadsheets, but it's not about the numbers. 300, if there's 300 million of taxpayer funds going to the ballroom, whatever, in the scale of the federal budget, that's not big, but it's a symbol of this horrible thing that's happening. And I think it's something people can relate to.
Paul Krugman, thank you so much for writing your Substack. I learn from it all the time, really. I'm not exaggerating. I learn from it every day. And Paul, thanks for coming on with us.
Well, thank you.